Greetings, Ray of Hope team here, and this is the first entry of our development diary. Utilizing this format allows us to introduce you to Ray of Hope's features, show you what we're working on at any given moment, as well as tell you about some aspects of gameplay. This approach seems to be more interesting and accessible in relation to the viewer. It allows us to understand in which direction we should go as we approach the release date. We decided to start from the basics, the level design. The S.T.A.L.K.E.R series is memorable for its relatively small locations, which were sufficient for developing a questline and basic gameplay features. But given their specifics, we deemed them unfit for a multiplayer project, thus facing a team with a difficult task of creating an open gaming world, which would present the players with vast areas to explore while maintaining a certain level of detail. In order to populate the world, we've added new locations which can be visited by the player seeking resources or shelter. For example, various industrial objects, abandoned villages, and rock anomalies. Right now we're focusing on working with various types of vegetation. Apart from the infrastructure, the majority of the exclusion zone consists of dense forest. Since the very beginning, we found great potential in forest gameplay-wise. The original flora was fully replaced, taking into consideration the scale and appearance of real-world plants, specific to this type of area, with various details being added in the process. Beneath the forest borders, you will find three types of forest zones: deciduous, coniferous, and mixed. The undergrowth, gradually disappearing in the deep forest, considerably limits movement and visibility, which increases the risk of getting into one of the rare but hardly noticeable anomalies. This is especially dangerous when you encounter a habitat of mutants, wild boars, forest bloodsuckers, or even chimeras. The former usually leave their lairs at night and could potentially destroy an entire S.T.A.L.K.E.R camp. Yes, from now on, each and every mutant has its own one-of-a-kind habitat. For example, it would be highly unlikely for the player to meet a wild boar beyond the forested areas, while dogs would much rather prefer to reside around abandoned industrial areas. Nonetheless, the challenge doesn't end there. Every player must be rewarded for their urge to explore. This is done partly by means of random events, where each player may be able to find valuable loot. During raids, you may be able to stumble upon items left behind by stalkers, secret hiding places in secluded areas, or even military vehicles trapped in anomalies. Highly observant players will most certainly fill their backpacks with medical drugs or ammunition. Apart from that, every once in a while you'll be able to find S.T.A.L.K.E.R camps, in which the player can stock up on provisions, eat, or get some rest. Still, this doesn't mean safety from mutant attacks and enemy stalkers. In fact, it could be quite the opposite. The camps could prove to be perfect spots for ambushing unwary travelers. All in all, currently we're trying to add more details to the environment in accordance with the locations from the original games. We're working on interiors for various buildings and adding many different objects to already existing ones. The attention to detail allows you to fully grasp the charm of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R setting. This, however, may take a toll on system performance. In order to minimize the loss of precious FPS, we've reworked a part of the physical game engine and have optimized the rendering. Seeing how the old algorithm required a lot of resources in order to fully load the level collision, the physical engine geometry into the RAM, it was fully replaced with a more recent one from the NVIDIA PhysX engine. This allowed us to separate the physical game space into chunks, smaller pieces of the world which load separately as the player approaches, and are dumped once he or she leaves. The amount of used memory in the current version of the location has decreased by 2.5 times. During rendering, the use of new technologies allowed us to have twice as much FPS with minimal changes. Such was also the case when we implemented deferred GPU commands, costing us but a few lines of code. This feature has so far given great results. Fixing some minor errors also increased the performance by a meaningful amount. Still, synchronizing the client with the server, as well as the synchronization of separate clients, remains our top priority. In this aspect also, we have achieved success, greatly reducing the time of delays of mutants and stalkers. optimizing them to a completely playable state.
Ну что, друзья, вот наш ориентир. Наша задача забрать документы и свалить отсюда. Давайте действуем быстро, но аккуратно. Валер, Дим, давай слева-справа. Вперед.
Понял тебя.
Что-то есть.
Где?
Да тут зомбари.
Зомби на 12. Огонь. Аккуратно, не подставляйте. -1. -2.
Обойду их.
Справа еще.
За кустами где-то ныкаются. Минус. Чисто?
Вроде да.
Ладно, вперед. Аккуратнее, пси-поле. Назад. Ну что, давайте я один схожу. У меня есть пси-блокада.
Только по Шурику, а то там может тебя психануть.
Вижу документы. Забрал. Все, вроде больше ничего интересного. Дима, давай, выводи нас отсюда.
Давай за мной.
Дим, двинули.
As you can see, we've integrated a fully functional voice chat with positioning technology. This allows the players to talk to one another without any third-party software.
Кабаны.
Справа, Валера, аккуратно.
Спасибо, что прикрыл.
Еще, не расслабляемся.
Готов.
Вроде все.
Хорошо. Ну что, я вас поздравляю, задача выполнена.
Let's talk about the bread and butter of any FPS game, the weapons, and also the interactive content. You've already had the experience of creating an animated PDA. A lot of time has passed since then, and we thoroughly revised our attitude regarding the level of quality we want in our game. The goal of the project, apart from achieving relative realism, was always to have a lot of interactivity. Our team is actively developing in that direction, and today, we would like to present you the various weapons we have in store. We have formed several basic directions complementing the gameplay in this regard, such as putting the weapon away. This feature allows us to avoid the excessive PvP combat, and provides the player with much needed safety during trading or simple conversation of others. In order to communicate with NPCs or players, we need to put the gun away. Also, this set of animations will be played upon entering friendly and neutral faction bases. We have formed several basic directions complementing the gameplay in this regard, such as putting the weapon away. This feature allows us to avoid the excessive PvP combat, and provides the player with much needed safety during trading or simple conversation of others. In order to communicate with NPCs or players, we need to put the gun away. Also, this set of animations will be played upon entering friendly and neutral faction bases. We're trying to add more interactivity to the weapons via animations, like walking while aiming, the transition from running to walking, and vice versa, or removing the weapon from the backpack and preparing for battle. Another key feature is the weapon jamming animation. The player no longer needs to fully reload the weapon when it jams, and the exact moment when it stops working is noticeable even in the heat of battle. But this is just one of the aspects of our development in this direction. The next important element is the weapon upgrade system. We focus on the individual and unique features of each weapon, affecting not only the internal mechanisms hidden from the player's eyes, but also actively working on the weapon's appearance. We are striving to create a weapon design interface in which each player can choose a direction of upgrade in accordance with his style of play, or simply get the aesthetic pleasure from creating a custom gun. Apart from that, the player will have the ability to not only buy upgrades, but also partake in trading with the mechanic, exchanging tactical loot for major price discounts. Rarity and quantity of the loot will differ depending on the upgrade cost. Repairs will have their unique features as well, and all weapons can be taken apart to fix a different weapon of the same kind. Keep in mind that as the weapon deteriorates, the amount of parts that can be salvaged from it will not be very significant. Also, we would like to note that each faction in Ray of Hope will have its own unique assortment of weapons, specific to its features. Already, the modeling of relevant samples of firearms and knives is being actively conducted, and this is where the pilot episode of our development diary comes to an end. Be sure to leave your comments and opinions about this format, and please rate the video. We'd love to hear more about your opinions and suggestions on our official forums. Keep tracking the news, and see you in the next episode of our developer diaries. Good hunting, Stalker.